Roblox Tower Defense Simulator has many enemies, some with a huge amount of HP. There are specific towers made to deal with these threats, as they specialize in having many DPS. And in this video, I'll rank these towers from worst to best, including their DPS and value. Before I start though, if you can, like and subscribe to be a part of the Bacon Bunch. I would really appreciate it, and I'm active, so if you want to talk to me, help me get some video ideas, or maybe even be in some specific conditions, consider joining my Discord server. It's a great time, and I hope to see you there. In last place, we have the Minigunner. Currently, the Minigunner tower is, well, decent, but in my opinion, it's the worst option. It costs 26,250 cash to max, and has a DPS of 128.21, giving it a cost per DPS of 204.74, which is alright. When it comes to being reliable, this tower is decent at it, having 20 range, a short reload time, and no placement limit, meaning your DPS can be a max of 5,128.4, not including skill tree and solo. This tower's max DPS is insane, but why did it make it last? Well, it's because you need a bunch of those minigunners to even reach that level of DPS. If you combine the DPS tower, let's say Warlock and Accelerator, it can give that much DPS with way less placement. Next, for 11th place, is the Swarmer. This tower is similar to Minigunner, having no placement limit. This tower costs 20,300 max, and it has a total DPS of 160, and a cost per DPS of 126.88, being way better than the Minigunner, and a good cost per DPS. However, the reason it's this low is because it's very unreliable. Having 20 range, which is the only decent part, against normal enemies and crowds, this tower is horrible. It doesn't instantly do 160 DPS, instead starts from 5, and slowly rises as it attacks, it applies B stacks. The problem is that it takes 30 shots at a single enemy to do that 160 DPS, and in TDS, that's not really possible unless the enemy is slow like a boss. Meaning Swarmer is strictly a boss killer, meaning you can't use it as standard DPS. However, once you got those speed stacks down, it's pretty powerful, but since it's unreliable, very unreliable, it's this low. Next, for 10th place, we have the Gatling Gun. This tower allows you to control it and do pierce damage, costing 213,250 cash to max, and has a max DPS of 1,673.23. And when doing that DPS, it has a cost per DPS of 127.45, which is really good. This tower is really reliable, being stun immune and having a full map range. However, the downside is that if you don't control it, this tower isn't that good, having a strict range and a DPS of 669.29 and a cost per DPS of 318.62. The main reason it's this low is that its max DPS is the lowest out of every tower on this list, and the only thing that saves it is its max DPS and good value. For 9th place, we have the Crook Boss, spawning units on the path while also doing some good DPS itself. It costs 67,150 cash to max, and assuming you have 1 Crook Boss, 2 Tommy units, and 4 pistol units, has a DPS of 418.8, giving the cost per DPS of 160.34, which is pretty good for a level 30 tower. With that high DPS, its combined DPS is 2,094, which is very good for a level 30 tower. This tower doesn't really have disadvantages like the other ones I previously mentioned. Problems would be stuns and the units being killed off, which make 1/4 of its DPS. Other than that, this tower doesn't really have any cons, and it's a good tower, especially for beginners, with how easy it is to get. For 8th place, we have the Golden Minigunner, a direct upgrade from its normal variant, costing 31,375 cash to max and have a DPS of 145.3, giving the cost per DPS of 215.93, being actually worse than its normal variant. This tower is not worth it to get in my opinion. It does do a huge DPS of 5,812 DPS with 40 of them. Pretty reliable stats, having 21 range, 0.6 second rev up and high DPS, but just like normal Minigunner, other towers can add to that DPS with way less placements. For 7th place, we have the Ranger. This tower focuses on doing huge amounts of damage per shot, but with a long fire rate. It costs 52,250 cash to max and has a DPS of 155.76, giving it a cost efficiency of 335.45 cost per DPS. But assuming its explosive attack hits 2 enemies, it becomes 202.49 DPS and a cost per DPS of 258.04, which is a lot better. This tower is also very reliable, being able to be fully buffed by supports, having full map range, and having a combined DPS of 1,619.92, which is lower than the other towers I mentioned, but with it being more reliable than the other ones, and being able to be fully buffed by supports gives it the upper hand. For 6th place, we have the Turret. Back in the day, this tower was considered to be the worst DPS tower. Now look at it, sitting in the middle of my tier list. This tower costs 139,000 cash to max, has a total DPS of 520, for a cost per DPS of 267.31, which is pretty decent. It's also one of those towers which are really reliable, having 27 range, a total DPS of 1,560 with 3 placed down, and having a fast fire rate As you have noticed, this tower has less DPS than the Ranger, but the reason it's higher than Ranger is because it has a faster fire rate, meaning you can use it more with crowds, and with its 520 DPS, it can shred through zombies. For 5th place, we have the Pursuit, being an aerial tower attacking from above. This tower costs 77,750 cash to max when on top path and not including bottom path. Max Pursuit has a total DPS of 336.47, giving the cost per DPS of 231.08, which is pretty good. Since you can get 6 Pursuits, that gives a max DPS of 2018.82, which is more than the turret and Ranger. Pursuit also has full map range and can be decently buffed by supports. Only problem is that Pursuit is pretty expensive, but they did fix that bug where it mindlessly just flies away. At least, it says they did. For 4th place, we have the Golden Crook Boss, a golden version and an upgrade from its normal counterpart. Spawning units, it costs 73,150 cash to max, and has a total DPS of 488.51. When being counted for 2 Tommy units and 4 pistol units, it has a cost per DPS of 149.74, which is really good. It also has a total DPS of 2,442.55. Now this is the highest DPS we've shown so far, not including the ones with no placement limit, so it's clear why it's high and also has really good cost efficiency. The only issues is that its units can be easily wiped out and it's not stun immune. Other than that, it's a really good DPS tower. For 3rd place, we have the Accelerator, a tower that uses a powerful plasma gun. It costs a total of 170,999 cash to max and has a total DPS of 427.77, with a cost per DPS of 252.47, with its total DPS being 2,138.85. This tower is also really reliable, being fully stun immune, meaning its DPS can't be interrupted. Second, its huge overcharge bar of 100,000 basically makes it being able to be fully buffed by supports, since you rarely reach that total. When Commander's 40% fire buff and DJ's 20% damage buff come into play, Accelerator has a DPS of 684.43, and having a total DPS of 3,422.16. This tower is pretty good, it stands at 3rd place, but in my opinion, for 2nd place, Engineer is better. A hardcore tower building her sentries making a majority of her DPS. It costs 55,152 cash to max, and a DPS of 540 when accounting for Engineer's rockets hitting 2 enemies. But looking at this Engineer DPS, it felt too unbelievable, so let me know in the comments if anything was wrong. This tower gives Engineer a cost per DPS of 102.13, which is insanely good and the best cost per DPS shown so far. With all 6 Engineers, it has a total DPS of 3,240. The Engineer is also pretty reliable, having a range of 22.5, and her sentries also having a range of 24. It's also semi-stun immune, with the sentries having shields, blocking stuns. But it disappears after 1 hit and needs a couple seconds to reappear, meaning when stun spam, Engineer's DPS can easily disappear. The main problem with Engineer is its stun spam, and that's not being able to be fully buffed by supports. Other than that, this tower is very strong with a great cost per DPS. Lastly, for 1st place, the best DPS tower, in my opinion, is Warlock. Using the sword to attack and an orb to shoot as well, switching from melee to range, it costs 75,500 cash to max, and with the melee DPS it has an average of 904.11 DPS, and its range DPS having a DPS of 358.62. So adding the numbers and having it, we get an average DPS of 631.37, which is pretty good, having a cost per DPS of 119.58, which is really good. Adding all these up, it gets a total DPS of 2,525.48, which is suddenly pretty low compared to Engineer and Accelerator. But including bleed damage and the fact that this tower should be always close to the path, this can do a bunch of damage. And it's also pretty reliable, having a range 24 with its melee, being able to knock back enemies and doing insane melee damage. I say it's 1st place. Oh, and you might have noticed I haven't included Mercenary base and Necromancer. For Necromancer's ranking, I'll put it in between Turret and Pursuit, and for Mercenary base, it'll go in between the Just Base Necromancer and Pursuit, meaning the updated tier list is 14th Minigunner, 13th Swarmer, 12th Gatling Gun, 11th Crook Boss, 10th Golden Minigunner, 9th Ranger, 8th Turret, 7th Necromancer, 6th Mercenary base, 5th Pursuit, 4th Golden Crook Boss, 3rd Accelerator, 2nd Engineer, and lastly 1st Warlock. Remember, this is my opinion, so if you happen to disagree, let me know in the comments below. All these towers perform well, just one happens to outperform the other. Don't feel like you're forced to use the best tower, as you're not. If you did enjoy this video, like and subscribe. Don't forget to join my Discord server. Have a great day or night. Goodbye.